Okay, so this is Three Men for Real. Uh, uh, they got on the phone. So this is the older one. They got on the phone with me, and I have already articulated this, but several months ago in a video. And there you can find the identity of the person that I'm talking about, but I'll keep it a plain a more simplified abstraction for the sake of the story right now. Pardon me. Okay, so we get on the phone, and they say to me, this is before Mamdani was elected. He says, it's a three men. So he says, Mamdani is a communist. He can't be elected, or shouldn't be elected. All right, so what are we going to talk about? Communism? You want to talk about communism, or you want to talk about Mamdani? I guess we're talking about communism, right? Because that seems to be that's the critique, because otherwise, based on the information you provided, we're just literally talking about a guy's name and maybe how he spells it, which I think I'm still unclear on. But you come to me and you say, okay, here's a man, Mamdani, and he's a communist. Which part you want to talk about? The Mamdani part is a proper name. It doesn't have any information with it. The word communist comes with infinite information. Okay, so I guess the idea is we're talking about communism. So I responded with, so they assert Mamdani is a communist, and I responded by, oh, okay, well, what works of communism are you talking about? What works of communist theory have you been reading lately? And they sounded confused. They said, what are you talking about? I'm not a communist. Yeah, I wouldn't think that you were a communist if you're criticizing somebody else for being a communist, right? So then I pressed the issue. I said, well, do we know anything about a proper name? You give me a proper name, Mamdani. What are we going to discuss? If the only other thing that you give me is the word communism, I guess you want to talk about communism, right? No, I don't want to talk. Okay. So when that man started resisting the idea that we were about to talk about communism. And I lost my temper. I really lost my temper. So I won't scream right now, but I said, okay, well, so why are you, and first of all, we haven't talked for a long time. I mean, that's what you want to talk about? So you introduce something that you want to talk about, but then when the person starts trying to talk about it, you try to change the subject? Then it happened again, several weeks later. Get on the phone. He says, all Muslims are butchers. Okay, so again, I have a similar kind of approach. I have a proposition in front of me. It's a sentence. The sentence under scrutiny is all Muslims are butchers, right? Okay, so what do we know about butchers? Nobody has any questions about what a butcher is. So let's just take it that part of the sentence is fairly uncontroversial, the meaning of the word butcher. Now, let's take the other part of the sentence. I mean, no, there's several parts, because there's the word all, for example. That carries tremendous weight in the assertion. The word are, the copula of the is, right? Conjoining the predicate with the subject. Are, all Muslims are butchers. It's 4 parts. All, you got universal quantification. Muslims, you've got the reference to the religious concept. Are, you've got the copula that conjoins the subject and predicate. Butchers. Butcher. What's a butcher? Well, it's probably a man that, or a woman, or indeed anybody. I mean, they're children butchers who probably keep livestock and slaughter animals and probably sell the meat in the community. So slaughtering animals and selling the meat to the community, I guess, is a butcher. Okay. So now it's not as though the concept of butchery is immune to or cannot undergo its own hermeneutic. For example, if you know the film Sicario, the original one, you will remember that the main cartel kingpin is under the nom de guerre, or street name, El Verdugo, the butcher. Okay. So similar thing happened. I said, okay, well, so you want to talk about Islam? Because I guess we're really talking about Muslims here. That's the subject. I mean, we're not gonna we don't find any, for this particular sentence, any controversy with words like butcher, all, and are. So we have to focus on the word Muslims. So I said, what, have you been reading the Quran, or? And he said, no. He got angry. No, why? What are you talking about? I said, well, what? I mean, you want to talk about Islam? You say all Muslims are butchers. I mean, that's a pretty controversial statement. You obviously want to talk about something really deeply, right? No, I don't want to talk about anything. So again, oh my God, I just unleashed. And then not only that, I made it much worse because I wouldn't let it go. And then I imagined, and I still believe it's probably true, that this individual is opening themselves to tremendous critique by hypocrisy. And so then I got, because I like getting witnesses for things now, I got somebody else on the phone with us. And somebody else that knows the history. And I said, okay, now that we're on the phone, we're making an inquiry into truth. And so then I started interrogating the man. And I said, is it or is it not true? In the 1960s, you such and such and such and such. And he denied it. And the person on the phone had a different version of the truth. I said, oh, so you're denying it? Then I said to the other person, I said to both of them, guess what? One of you is lying. So that's the first man. Not the synthesizer and not Neil Armstrong, but the first man in what? My story. Yes. Here's the second man. Now, the first man I still have not spoken to. That happened 6 months ago, maybe. Who's the second man? I'll do it chronologically. The second man I just spoke to. And now I will speak to you directly because you know who you are. The second man is, to use a technical phrase, OG motherfucker. OG motherfucker. And now this individual, I definitely, because we've been talking about politics a lot. And I said, everything that I do now is to be understood under the concept of the political. If I misbehave, if I speak out of turn, if I say offensive things, if I criticize people, for any number of reasons, I might criticize them. Because I will open big political critique of the society, not just of the political class. But I take everything that's happening. Basically, we're all contributing to the conditions. We're all part of the conditions. We got ourselves into this mess not because we elected the wrong person or so, right? Not because of that. No, I mean the conditions. The presuppositions. The prior conditions that hold, that mean that we have to elect this, right? Those conditions, that which we all are. That which we all are. In how much measure, and in what ways is a matter of inquiry, which is what I'm doing, which is what I take myself to be doing. We all contribute. Who contributes what part? Is it negative or positive or something else? Is it stuck in the past? Is it a delusion of an unrealistic future? What is it? So the way the difficulty with this individual emerged, and I'm very well aware of how this sort of thing can happen. Once you take on proselytization of a system, you can expect any number of sorts of resistance. Proselytes, am I pronouncing it correctly? Whether for a philosopher or for philosophy or for religion or for a political system. Proselytes, now it just sounds like a weird foreign word because I guess we never focus on it. We just use it. We just use it. We never mostly mention it, which is what I'm doing now. I'm mentioning the word proselyte to talk about it. The spelling of the word proselyte, or the pronunciation of it, or right. If you go out and preach your philosophy, you can expect resistance. And if you keep doing it, you will piss people off. And if you keep going it further still, you will break the relationship. So what, from my perspective, started happening was I basically started preaching a particular philosophical standpoint in relation to the political, and basically demanding that everybody, or at least people who count, thought leaders who can make some kind of difference, get with the fucking program and read a little Gottlob Frege, right? I mean, Übersinn and Bedeutung and Der Gedanke both. I mean, for the amount of indirect influence that it's had on the society, somebody somewhere should have realized that more Americans need to be learning this material, because it permeates every single corner, every last aspect of our ordinary life. And yet most people, in fact, practically all people, aside of analytic philosophers, even really know the name Gottlob Frege. Now, I'm not a fan of Frege for any reason other than beyond he's just about the best writer I've found, besides Aristotle and who's the other good one? David Hume. How's that for three men? Aristotle, Hume, Frege. Those are the three best writers in history, from my perspective. And Derrida. Somehow he's in there too. Yeah, Derrida. Aristotle, Frege, Derrida, and Hume. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good list. So even though I had prefaced that, that it was my political involvement that could account for something like, and I didn't say it directly, I probably did. I probably must have, I mean, I'm saying it in a number of ways. You know, look, it's my political involvement that's making me preach Frege right now. But the relation is not tight enough. Just the same way in the sentence, and it's the sentence itself too. Mamdani is communist, or all Muslims are butchers. In the sentence itself, we think that we're going to be talking about a person, in the case of Mamdani, or a group of people, in the case of Muslims. But because of the fact that implicit to any conversation with me is my whole philosophy, just the same way as it is with you, implicit to any conversation with you is your philosophy. All of it. And so part of my philosophy is that individuals and groups of individuals are more or less not to blame for faults. And I don't do metaphysical critique. I don't do anything other than conditions. Conditions, but not even environment, because you can do psychoanalytic, but that's fine. I mean the sentence itself. The sentence itself. Carries the whole structure of whatever the dispute is imagined to be. One must look at the sentence not because I say so, but because there were advancements in science and the humanities over the past 100 years that have incorporated a very intimate, tight connection metaphysically between sentences and ordinary human life, and or science, and or the humanities, or whatever. Sentences. The sentence as such. So, it's no good selling point for philosophy of language and analytic philosophy after Frege that it is so damn tedious, and if you're not crazy enough to slog through the tedium, you will turn away very easily just because it starts looking like an elementary school grammar lesson real quick. But it's not I mean, that's linguistics, and linguistics, of course, is very closely related to analytic philosophy and philosophy of language. And linguistics is the only name in science. I mean, it's not the only name in science, but rather linguistics is such a deep and well-developed and completely rigorous discipline. If you do serious theory in any category, you have to assume all of linguistics. Even if you don't know it, you have to assume all of linguistics, right? You know, keep up to date about who knows what, for crying out loud. Everybody's so specialized. Nobody is aware of who knows what. But to my mind, I mean, I don't know. I was trained this way, one way or another. I was trained to learn from people, and I was trained to inquire if somebody's doing serious thinking, no matter where they come from, to inquire what is the substance of their thinking, regardless of how it presents itself on the face. So now, with this stories about this second man, because this is I've been going on about this now. You can imagine that the outcome from that turbulence, basically me, you know, if to what degree this is correct, you know, I'm being an offensive proselytizer. The subject of mental health still comes up from time to time, but you know, it's exactly the way I said that it works. I mean, anybody that has questions about my mental health, I direct you all the way back to the beginning of my YouTube channels, and you can review all of my considerations there, because I give very specific instructions if you have questions about my mental health, how to proceed. I did that in order that I don't have to ever talk about my mental health with anybody. Unless you go back and you watch those videos and you prove to yourself and to me that you genuinely are concerned about your mental health, in which case then you can come to me and then talk about my mental health. It's fine. I have no clue about my mental health, and I would wager to assert that nobody has any clue about anybody's mental health these days. Because if Dear Leader is certifiably, beyond any reasonable doubt, psychotic, so we've elected a psychotic sociopath to lead the United States of America, I don't really think that there's any discussion about mental health now in our culture. It's over. It's completely over. There's no such thing as mental health, from my perspective. And that is a political assertion. It's not a scientific assertion. It's not a poetic assertion. It's a political assertion. If the society is structured in a certain way as to define a difference between sanity and insanity, or mental health and mental unhealth, and then what is paradigmatic of mental unhealth we put as the highest leading principle of the society, I wager to assert that the category has gone bunk. So, of course, with man number two, our relationship is perfectly intact because the individual, I don't know, it's that relationship goes differently than the one that involved communists and Muslims. And so in the first situation, the problem emerged from the person wanting to make heavy weather about communism and Islam, and then not be willing to engage in any dialogue after they've very clearly introduced the notion of heavy weather about those things. So they caused that problem. I did not bring anything. In the second case, I caused the fucking problem. Because I'm going, read Frege, read Frege, read Frege, read Frege. Right. So I take it that it's my problem. Now, in the case of the second man, I don't even think that anything was particularly went skewed or anything. But if I don't pick up the phone, I mean, that's what we're talking about here, I mean, we're talking about situations I can't get into. If I know that there's going to be a battle royal, I better be sure that the other person wants a battle royal, and I'm not sure that any of these three men want that. I don't really. Moreover, I don't really believe that for all the hoopla these days, for all the hoopla about Jubilee and debate this and that and no holds barred and UFC and shit. My word is gigantomachia. Gigantomachia perites osias. The battle of giants about being itself. The no rules conceptual battle royal I mean, no rules in the category of technique. No rules. In other words, it's not that you can only use logic or you can only use rhetoric. No, you can use anything. You can even just use name calling or whatever, right? I mean, seriously. You could dance. That's what I mean. Gigantomachia peritesousias is a statement about the highest. It's a statement from the highest minds about the highest things. So that category, literally anything is admissible, provided a very minimal assumption that that is what we're doing. Provided the minimal assumption that if there's two competitors, two antagonists in this competition, there must be a minimal principle whereby both participants can demonstrate to one another as well as any onlookers the conditions under which they are willing to concede defeat. It doesn't, that part should probably be formal, but it doesn't necessarily have to be formal if we have reason to believe that one of the participants actually is capable of being defeated. Now, this is I think it's a bit of a ruse the way that I'm presenting, because of course, like me personally, I don't actually believe in debate. So it's kind of because my philosophy really doesn't include debate. I mean, I can debate if that's what if that's what my interlocutor wants, I can debate. But if they find that they've beaten me in a debate because they know something that I don't, I'll just say, yeah, you win the debate, but you just taught me something new. What do I owe you? You want to send me an invoice? Like, you just taught me for free. So what's more valuable, winning a debate or knowing the argument that won the debate? If I lose a debate, I don't care that I lost. What I want to know is what the argument was that beat me. Man number 3 is an odd duck. I love him dearly. He is eminently capable. I spoke to him for the first time after 10 years. And you know who you are. If you're listening to this, I probably will send this to you, but I doubt you'll get far enough to get to this part. But this individual has probably called me over the past 2 weeks 100 times. And why am I so special? I mean, I've known this guy forever, and he's a sweetheart. And now I spoke to him on the phone. He sounded fine. And so what all of a sudden? So what I told him, he's not in the country, and I said, you need to be here because our country's falling apart, and we need people like you. I mean, who else is going to do it? But they're in their own world. And I mentioned Minneapolis, and they said, well, there's a lot of fake news out there. So when they said that, I was like, okay, well, I don't know, whether what they're doing, but, you're in a different headspace, it's fine. But, I made it very clear. I said, I'm really concerned about our country. That's all I'm thinking about right now. That is literally all I'm thinking about right now. Everything refers to that. So that one is ongoing. So the one, I guess, the first one that I mentioned, that one hasn't even made the first step toward resolution. The second one, I mean, whatever the arc of the tension. The second one, I guess, is resolved, but if there was anything to resolve in the first place, I doubt. And the third one, I guess, okay, in the first one, the problem came from the person. Then in the second situation, the problem came from me. In the third situation, I think that the problem doesn't come from either of us. It comes from both of us. It's just that we're in different places. So I'm not unavailable for this person's calls, for his 100 calls, because they did anything or that I did anything. It's I don't have bandwidth for it, because I'm if that's where that person's head, that's not, if that person is not thinking about explicitly about politics in the United States, I literally don't have time or energy for it right now. Doesn't mean I don't love him. So, three situations that from my standpoint, as like life being filtered through Dimitri, have all been shaped by the politics that we're living through. And of every single relationship in my life, I have stories like this. Every single relationship. It's caused tremendous rifts. And uncanny tremendous rifts. Maybe one or two tremendous rifts. I mean, if nothing else, I would just like to hear people talk, on podcasts about how it's all this is affecting their relationships. I mean, I don't hear any discussion about that. All I hear is just discussion of, complaining, bitching, and moaning about the powers that be. But, I mean, there's not really even anything to discuss explicitly. I mean, the Trump administration probably hopes that we'll all go back to what, we'll forget about, we'll just get used to living under tyranny, and we'll forget about being political. But not in the United States. It won't happen. It won't happen because there's too many people like me now who are ready to, go to any limit to defend the U.S. Constitution. So how would it not affect our relationships?